Have you ever wondered what goes into your favorite brand's digital marketing strategy? I'm Tara, the founder of TJ Creative Agency.
And I'm Audrey, the creative marketing director of TJ Creative Agency. Whether you're an influencer, a business owner, a content creator, or just an overall creative person, we'll teach you how to create the perfect social media strategy and build your brand online. So we're going to talk about boundaries today as a social media manager. Excuse me.
She's been talking about social for so many days.
You guys, let me be clear with you. I don't know if I'll keep any of this in. We've been recording, just like batch recording for 2 days. My brain is fried. So keep that in mind as you're listening to this episode.
Seriously.
Anyways, we're going to talk about boundaries. Honestly, one of my favorite subjects to talk about in terms of social media management, because I had boundaries and then I lost them last summer and I was losing my mind. My mom came to visit me. I'm crying. She's like, "You're not your normal self." I'm like, "I don't have work boundaries. That's why." I'm crying my eyes out because I don't have work boundaries and I'm burnt out. So that's, let me scare you guys straight. That's what happens when you don't have boundaries. You'll start crying. Okay? So
Good.
if you don't want to cry about your job, set some boundaries.
It's true.
Sarah, have you cried without
I cry every
boundaries?
day.
Exactly. Because do you have a lot of boundaries in place?
No.
Exactly. So
And I
learn
don't have
from
a mom
Tara's
to tell
mistakes.
me about them.
So learn from Tara's mistakes. Set boundaries so you don't cry every day.
It's so true.
Let's jump into this. So essentially, I mean, we already told you why you need boundaries because you guys aren't trying to cry every day. Your face is going to look puffy. But outside of that, it's really easy not to have boundaries. Like if you work in social media, you get it. It's very all consuming, especially if you don't, like I have said this before, but having a work phone has been like a game changer for me. But especially if you don't have a work phone, it's so easy to just like jump on a client account or like answer comments on a client's account or whatever. Like it can be very all consuming and it's really, really easy to find yourself prioritizing work over every other area of your life, which might be sustainable for a little bit, but eventually it's not sustainable. You're going to find yourself either resenting your job because you prioritize it so high and you're missing out on other things because you like put it so far in advance. You're going to burn out. You're going to get tired. Like something's going to happen. I also think like having boundaries allows you to create your best work, allows you to be the best version of yourself at work. It allows you to be completely present with your clients. And here's the thing, your clients signed up to work with you because they want the best version of you, right? They had a vision of you when you did this discovery call. You were completely in on the discovery call. You're pitching them whatever it is you can do for them. They want that version of you. So when you don't have these boundaries and you're multitasking and you're double booking, they're not getting the version of you that they signed up for. They're getting the half-assed version of you. They're not getting what they wanted. And honestly, that's how you're going to end up with unhappy clients, is because you don't have boundaries. So you also, like I said, you end up getting burnt out and having to take time off anyways. So there's just like so many reasons why you need boundaries. But if you can't do it for yourself, know that you should do it for your clients, because when you don't have those boundaries, that's when your clients get upset.
Yeah.
So
kind of, but
I mean, I agree.
Like I just, as a business owner, there's like it's almost like you have to just give up 5 years of your life with to really like.
Yeah. Well, I even mean, when I say boundaries, I don't even necessarily mean boundaries for you. I mean, like if you have, let's say you have a content day scheduled with a client from 8 to 11 a.m. and another client is like, come in today. Those boundaries are, no, I can't come in today because I have 8 to 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. And then I have like other things that I have in my schedule for that day. So no, I won't come in today, but we'll work on another day. You know what I mean? So I don't necessarily mean like set boundaries so you can go to the spa after work. I mean like set boundaries so you're not double booking yourself and you're not like saying yes on a whim and you're not multitasking so much that like they're only getting 50% of your attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like each client deserves 100% of your attention when you're with them or when you're on the phone with them or when you're emailing them. When you're working on their stuff, they deserve 100%, you know?
Yeah.
So kind of getting into like ways that we have been able to set boundaries. One of the ways I think is having schedules and planning ahead. I am a huge advocate for planning content in advance because for a few reasons. One, I think setting those deadlines of like when your next content calendar is due, it might sound restrictive, but it prevents you from ever having to create off the cuff, which I think most of you would agree that when you are like, oh shit, I have something that needs to go out today, like something needs to go out today, it's going to be shitty content because you're doing it just because you know something needs to go up today, right? Like it's just that pressure that you're not putting a ton of
It's not
time or
sustainable, like you said.
yeah.
It's not sustainable. Like you can come up with, you can do it, but it's not
Yeah,
like
you can do
something
it
that you
every
can
now
do
and
all the
again.
time.
But if you like, I don't know, those are always the posts that I'm like, these suck because I gave myself 30 minutes to do it because I needed something to go up. Like I didn't have enough time to like think about like what my audience might actually want to see or what posts have done well. I'm just like, this is an easy post, something needs to go out. Right? Like it's just shitty. It's always shitty content. So it completely prevents that, right? Because you're out far enough in advance. It also gives your clients a structure and more time to edit. So if I'm like, I had one client when I first started in social media where I would send her the post that was going up every day on the day. And that created so much stress for me because if she had edits and I didn't have time to edit it or she got back to me later in the day, then the post couldn't go up on time and whatever, things like that. So I usually try and send, like I said, we do 2 weeks out. So, like, I have a client, her stuff is going up next Monday, is when it goes live. I sent her the content calendar this Monday. I said, you need to have your edits to me by Wednesday. Finalizations, I will have to you by Friday. It'll start going live on Monday. But it gives them an entire week to go through that. Right. And they'll appreciate that, right? Because your clients still have jobs. Their job isn't just to look over their social media. Like they're obviously doing other things. And they hired you because they don't have time to run their socials. So giving them an allotted amount of time to edit things also prevents those complaints. So that's another big thing. Like I said, when they send day of, I hate that.
Then
That
that's
stresses me out
I
so much.
hate it. So this is a topic that we should probably discuss because I do think what has kept this business going is a lot of these things that like you do step outside the boundary, you do step outside the box because you are trying to give them an experience and like you are an extension of them. You're an extension of their brand. And
Right.
sometimes something comes up and they need it immediately, just like if I needed something immediately.
I will say
There's this
there are exceptions. I've said before, like if someone's out of office for an emergency or there's severe weather or they need to essentially just get information out to their
yeah.
audience, yeah, that's fine. Like I said, there's exceptions. But when people are just like, hey, I want you to post this photo today. No, no.
Yeah. And
That
I
can
also
go in
think
the
there's a
schedule.
part that comes into like training them to almost do it themselves is going to be the best option here. Like, yes, I'll do
I
this for you
agree
today,
and disagree
but
with you,
like,
but there's
but just
nothing I
on
hate more.
stories.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Stories is fine.
You know what I mean? Like, say it's Happy Doctor's Day or whatever. Okay, well, can you
Like
do
you're
that?
with the
Or can you have the,
doctors.
yeah, you're with the doctors. Could you maybe have people in the office say Happy Doctor's Day, Dr. Hayden, Dr. Booth, and put it on stories? Like, but training them to do that, then that eliminates that. And it's not, and it's even more authentic than something we come up with in Canva that looks like,
That looks like shit
you know what I'm
because you
saying?
didn't give us any notice.
Yes, like you
Yeah.
said. So I think there is like, I just think that relationship is so,
There's
it's such a
I
fine
will
line to walk of like, I'm part of this team, I'm an extension of you, and I'm here to be here for you no matter what, whenever you need me, but not at the expense of whatever I'm going to be
I
sacrificing. And I think
I
that's where I fall out of line.
I think yeah, I just think there's exceptions. I want to say that with all of these boundaries. There's definitely exceptions like if something happens. But I think one of the biggest things is like having these boundaries within your business will once you start to uphold them, right? You have the boundaries, your clients know about the boundaries. Again, we've said this before, it's harder to go backwards with clients you already have than like if you bring someone on, set the boundaries immediately. It's much easier to do that than it is to work backwards. But when you set those boundaries and you actually uphold them and you say, actually, I can't come in at 1 day's notice. You gave me 24 hours notice to do whatever it is they're asking you to do. When you start doing that, I think they respect you a little bit more because when you pull back and you don't have those boundaries, they think they can walk all over you. They think they can ask you, they think they can text you at 11 p.m. I need a post to go up tomorrow at 8 a.m. Maybe you're at dinner. Okay. Maybe you're like already have things going on. But when you don't have those boundaries, you don't set them. You never say no to your clients. That's when they're like, oh, they are at my beck and call. That's the last thing you want, is your clients to think you're at their beck and call.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's kind of that on scheduling. I just think scheduling things and them knowing the dates that they're going to get these content calendars really
I think
helps you out.
also for us is the Calendly has been like I know you and Megan
Yeah.
talked about that too, but the importance of Calendly has really been like I even send Calendly to like my kids' friends, or I'm like, sorry, but like this is the only way I know
I
how to
think
function at this
I
point.
was going to say, it
Can you
helps you
book
out a
a
lot.
2-hour consult with me, but not really a play date? Like I can't think of anything
That's
outside of
why
those ones.
Megan and I were actually talking earlier, like off the mic, but we were talking about how even scheduling in like editing in your calendar is huge.
That's
So that
huge.
way, if you're like, okay, I need 5 hours on Friday to edit, and that's in your calendar, and maybe you say, okay, I have 2 hours. I know I have to record a podcast for 2 hours on Tuesday. Now your clients, when you send out that calendar, your clients are like, oh, okay, maybe she can do after that on Tuesday or before this editing time. But like scheduling in the things that you need to do, essentially like having a task list and being like, okay, this is when I'm going to schedule these into my calendar, versus letting your clients run your calendar, I think is
That's what has
another
yeah,
boundary.
that's a big thing. Yeah.
That happens to you a lot. Like just like having it be open. So I think, like I said, putting those things in, if you're like, I have paperwork, I need to like talk to the accountant this day, I need to whatever, I have a team meeting this day, put that all in your calendar. So that way, when you have those, you send out that calendly, the clients can see, oh, she's not available during this time. So they can either adjust. Like they just have to be respectful of your time at the end of the day. Like it just goes awry when they think that they own your time.
Yep. It is.
So, kind of jumping to like new clients. Like we said, it's much easier to set boundaries with new clients. And one of the things that we've kind of done with these boundaries are send out an onboarding packet that we send out to every new client. And it really goes over those boundaries, right? It says these are our office hours, when you can get a hold of us, our main source of communication. Sometimes it looks different for different people. I talk mostly through email. That's my preferred. I want you to email me because that's the way that I can have boundaries as an employee. Occasionally, if you want to send me a text on my work phone, I don't even give out my personal phone number to clients anymore. You only have my work phone number. So that's like
That's the
one
greatest
thing,
thing.
how they're going to contact you. Same with when I say office hours. Like I tell Tara, I'm out by like 5:30 most of the days. I'm not going to respond to you past 5:30. So having that in the onboarding agreement, if you text me past 5:30, you email me past 5:30, expect to get an email at like 8:30 the next morning. And that's fine. You know, I tell my interns this too. I tell clients and interns this. I prefer email. If it is an emergency, you can text me. You shouldn't have to text me. If it's an emergency, you can text me. Otherwise, I want it in my email. It's also easier for me to organize in my email. So things like that, that's in the onboarding packet. Holidays we honor. I think that's huge. Like, sorry, we're not going to get back to you on Independence Day or President's Day or whatever it is, so that they know. I also think occasionally sending out, if it's, I don't know, maybe you're going on a team retreat or whatever. I just got an email from a client today that said, hey, I'm going to be out of office. If you send me anything, just know I'm not going to get it till Monday. That type of communication, which we'll get into a little bit later. Communication is a huge part of the boundaries. But that's something that you should talk about. Like I said, the dates when your content calendars are going to be sent out, when they need to be edited by, that's all in that onboarding packet. How early in advance clients need to get their marketing information to you. Like if they have a marketing calendar, they need to get that to you by the end of the week, or the last week of the previous month. So like if we're going into April, they need to get us their marketing calendar for April by the last week of March. Things like
Yes.
that. Like all of these kind of dates are all
This
in
is
our
all
onboarding.
from trial and error.
Yeah. And you guys know, I'm sure everybody listening to this knows, if you don't have boundaries, that's the trial and error we're talking about. You lose your mind, you go crazy, and you realize,
Right.
okay, shit, I need to put some boundaries up. And so you do, and it gets better. So,
Yes.
yeah, I do think the rules and guidelines onboarding packet has been really huge for us. Obviously, there's a whole nother conversation that goes around upholding the boundaries, and actually being like, hey,
Refer
don't
to
touch.
that. Refer back to that.
Yeah,
Refer back to that. I think
like an
if
etiquette.
yeah,
Yeah, like an etiquette
yeah.
of being like, hey, can you check your onboarding
Remember
packet
that
that we
thing I
sent you?
sent?
Yeah,
Yeah,
remember that
a
thing that
while
you
back.
signed? We actually have them sign it. Remember that thing you signed that said you would only like you wouldn't text me on my personal number at 8 a.m. on a Saturday? Remember that thing you signed?
Yeah.
Last little bit of boundaries I wanted to talk about was communication. And I think this is probably the biggest boundary you can set with your clients. Aside from scheduling, which is probably the other biggest one, communication is absolutely huge. Like for me, I don't want anyone to contact me on the weekend because this is also obviously everyone has their own boundaries. For me, I don't like having anything to do with work on my mind on the weekends because it's going to take me 4 hours to get out of work mindset. Like I'm going to get one text. Now I'm thinking about work. I'm not resting. Like I, on my own, have a really hard time resting. I've never been able to rest. So if I'm in rest mindset, I get a text about a client grid. Nope, now I'm in work mindset and I'm not rested at all. So that's for me why I'm not going to check my work emails on the weekend. Again, if it's an emergency, you can text me. You shouldn't have to text me. So things like that, even like I'm a little bit more lenient in the evenings, but like weekends are like some of my hard boundaries. I'm not going to respond on the weekends because I need to rest or I'm not going to be a good version of myself the following week, right? Like I need that time to recover or I'm going to be a shit version of me when I show up to work that next week. Same with um like I said, when are your work hours? Sometimes, like to be honest, I don't know if I told you this, Tara, but for a while before I had my work phone, I put you and the team group chat on do not disturb every night once I finished working because I was
Yeah,
like,
I think that's yeah. No, I
that
think
was the
that's
only way
fair.
I could.
And I think this is fair. I think this is good insight for like even me as an owner and like yes, to me this is like I don't have that option. Like even I really don't. I don't know if it's like there's no way I could shut off and just not be available to a client on the
That's why I
weekend on the night.
told That's
And
why
so I'm
this is
like,
like a
but
different boundary, but this is why I was telling Megan, like, I almost wonder if she needs access to be able to flag things for you. So you don't need to look at everything, but so she can have access, like, even like emails and be like,
yeah.
okay, just prioritize things for you. Because I feel like majority of these things, they don't need responses immediately. They can get a response at whenever you're done with what you're doing, right? But like Megan could be able to send you, hey, this client, this is like an ASAP drop what you're doing versus like, yeah, you got a few emails, but they can wait, you know?
And Megan's done a really good job of this even recently with this client that was like, I need this and it said in this agreement this and this and she's like, you're fine. You have a few days. You can put it off. You know, Andy had a
Yeah.
tonsillectomy. It's okay. Like, and I'm like, you're right. Like, my daughter did have surgery. I'm going to step back for a few seconds and take care
Right.
of her
Just
so
being
that
able
I
to.
can.
So I'm not saying don't respond at all, but I am saying you're allowed to prioritize other things. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same. I think of it as like you have to pour into your own cup before you can pour into other people's. And that's like a silly thing to say about business, but it's true. Like if you burn yourself out, you're not going to be the version of you that's good at what you do, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's just like
Yeah.
obviously I'm not telling you to put everything aside. There's days too where I take the day off and I'm still responding to texts. Like, you know what I mean? So there's definitely days, but just being able to say, okay, I don't need to get to that right now. That's why I turn it on do not disturb like I said because I can't if I go into work mode, I'm not getting out of work mode. So that's why I do that. Some people are much better at compartmentalizing. I'm not, and that's okay. And I know that about myself, so I set that boundary. But
Yeah.
you know, you can get an email like I'm saying, for some people you can get an email and be like, you know what? Like that's not super pressing. I saw it. I know that it's there. I'll mark it as unread. Um, I'll get to it when I'm like not on a boat with my family, you know?
And I'm like, stop the boat.
Yeah.
We must
So
respond.
I mean, to be fair, like I think
Oh, that's
boundaries are the
good.
hardest part for business
They
owners
are really are.
especially, but just for this industry, like probably the hardest part because it's easy to get sucked in.
There's no way away. one of the best things I think is that phone, and goal
Yeah.
would be that everybody has a work device that separates them from that, even to down to the point that you don't even have the editing apps on your personal phone, because I
Yeah.
think sometimes I even catch myself in an editing app, that, man, if it wasn't on my phone, then it would be a lot easier. But because it's
Yeah.
right there, it's accessible, then I'm able to do it. Then I'm like, I can do this now. I have 10
Yeah.
minutes in the car.
Yeah.
So I think that getting to a place where you can get your team to have work devices is good and key.
Yeah. And I've said before, one of my boundaries before having a phone was doing a lot of things on my computer, which I still do. I still do majority of my work on my computer, but that was one way, like I wouldn't have my work email on my personal phone. Like I only had it on the computer. It's just everybody also, like I said, is going to have their own boundaries. You know yourself, you know what's going to trigger you, you know what's going to like get a rise out of you, and you have to be able to set those boundaries. You know what's going to burn you out, you know what's going to
Yep.
overwork you. So everybody's going to
Mhm.
have personal boundaries.
Yep. And I think it's great to talk to them, or talk with each other about your boundaries.
Yeah.
Like, something that I've learned about Audrey over the last 2 years of working with her is that boundary. Like, um, and maybe that didn't apply to a previous employee or the next employee, but like everybody's
Right.
going to have different boundaries. So I think having conversation around it is huge.
Yeah, I'm like, Tara,
Um,
by the way, if you text me at 9 p.m., I'm losing my
but I've
mind.
learned,
So I
I've
would
learned. So I
yeah.
do. I text her on the work phone, and I know that she'll see it in the morning, and
Yeah.
I expect that response in the morning because she'll see it in the morning. And
Yeah.
that's just been through trial and error and learning.
Right. And you have to vocalize that. And that's the other thing. That's what makes boundaries hard, is having that
Yeah.
conversation. Because I remember when I was really burnt out last summer, I was like, oh my God. My mom's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't know. I like don't have boundaries. My mom's like, can you simply ask Tara to send you an email in the evenings? And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And she's like, it's not that bad. And I'm like, Tara, I would love if you just sent me emails. Tara's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
sure. I'm like, oh my
We'll do it
God.
that
I
way.
got all worked up about it.
Take that off. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I think those the conversations are the hardest part of
Conversation's the
telling,
hardest part.
yeah, telling
Obviously.
people
Yeah, it's
no
just a
or
hard
telling
conversation.
people, yeah. Like that's the hardest part.
And
But to be honest, most of your clients, most of your employees, whoever you're setting these boundaries with, should be pretty receptive because they know that you're also a human that does things like, especially, you know what? I was going to say especially for us, but sometimes our clients are like, I'm your most important client.
oh,
Okay.
100%.
But
Which
like
I
they
kind of actually, yeah, it's hard for me to say you're not, and that I won't drive
yeah.
55
But
miles
but
to
it's
see you
also
today.
the being able to they know you're a human, right? They know you have kids, they know you have shit going on, and that should be enough that they should be receptive to being like, okay, I can't take every second of your time because I'm not an asshole. Like
Yes.
hopefully.
Hopefully. I think we've got them down to the ones mm, that could do that.
Yeah,
So,
I think we've slowly been putting those boundaries in place, but it's also, yeah, you just have to figure out the best way to have that conversation and the best way to implement those for you and for your clients. And some of those boundaries might look different for different clients, by the way.
yeah,
Some
yeah.
of those boundaries might look different for
Obviously,
your
depending on
employees.
I found, and maybe this is something people can relate to, but the bigger the package they pay for, the more inclined I feel to respond quicker.
Yeah.
Like that's been an issue for me, is like, well, this is one of our biggest paying clients, like I need to be available all the time kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how to get around that, but I've noticed that about myself, and that is something that you can maybe relate to.
Yeah. Well, that's all I've got on boundaries. Did you have any other tips that you wanted to throw in
No,
there?
let's go have some conversations about boundaries.
Let's go start some conversations.
Let's
Cool.
let's go hit them up.
If we can have
I'll
those
send this
conversations,
podcast to all
you're like,
clients.
by the way, we're implementing boundaries now. So just saying, you guys, if we can have those conversations, so can you.
Yes. All right.
All right, we'll talk to you guys next week.
Next week. Bye.